Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Erica Salazar, pronouns she, her, ella, and I am the Manager of Recruitment, Outreach, and Inclusion here with the UCLA Division of Graduate Education, Office of Recruitment, Outreach, and Admissions. And today we'll be talking about the nuts and bolts of applying to graduate school. Before continuing into our presentation, I'd like to acknowledge that UCLA is a land-grant institution, and the Division of Graduate Education acknowledges the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tovangar in the Los Angeles Basin, South Channel Islands. For today's presentation, our objectives are as follows. We hope that you'll be able to identify components of a typical graduate application. We hope that you'll understand how to choose potential graduate programs and that you design an action plan for completing application components. Before moving forward with the presentation, I'd like to encourage you all to stay connected to our mailing list for UCLA graduate programs. We have over 136 graduate programs that you can choose from, and you can browse more of our information on our website, grad.ucla.edu. But you can scan this QR code to stay connected and connect further with those graduate programs. So for today's agenda, we will be going over the graduate admissions overview, application process, admission requirements, timeline, and action plan. For the general admissions process, it typically is composed of 3 components. Researching. So first and foremost, you want to research the graduate institutions, graduate programs that you're interested in. After you have done that, you want to go ahead and apply to those graduate programs or institutions. And then after you have been accepted into those programs, you want to choose the right program for you. Typically, this general admissions process, you should be creating a schedule that includes the following action items. So what do you need to complete first before moving forward? And deadlines. So we encourage students to work backwards from the application deadline to today and add your action items. I'd like to talk a little bit more about exploring your graduate school options. So that research phase of the general admissions process. So when considering graduate programs, perhaps you'd like to consider graduate school at UCLA. If you're interested in applying, we'd like to note that the Recruitment, Outreach, and Admissions Office is responsible for managing and supporting all aspects of outreach, recruitment, and graduate admission. In collaboration with campus partners, ROA facilitates efforts to recruit, admit, and yield outstanding graduate students from populations to more than 100 UCLA graduate programs. Examples include participating in recruitment events at national conferences, forums, and regional institutions, providing leadership in admissions policies and procedures to admit graduate applicants, coordinating summer research programs for visiting students and bridge programs for incoming doctoral students, promoting faculty and student participation in extramurally funded projects that focus on enhancing the graduate student and postdoctoral scholar populations. And our office serves as a resource for faculty, staff, and prospective students to provide guidance on the graduate application and admissions processes. We do not review applications. Instead, each graduate department decides the admissions criteria for their programs, which may be beyond the university's requirements for admissions to UCLA for graduate studies. We do encourage you to check the admissions requirement for the program you are interested in on our website. Again, that is grad.ucla.edu. You can also scan this QR code to learn a little bit more about our university requirements. When thinking about graduate school, again, this is during that research phase of exploring graduate school options, you definitely want to do a little bit of me-search. So what does me-search typically entail? It means doing a little bit more research on yourself. So you want to know a little bit more about your skills and interests. Perhaps you are interested in expanding your research skills. You are, let's say, for example, a sociologist who is interested in doing more empirical research. So your hope is that when you go to graduate school, you'll be able to expand on your empirical research skills. That is some of your skills, and your interest is to learn a little bit more about those research capabilities. Um, Let's say too, when you're thinking about graduate school, you want to think about institutional offerings. So what can that university offer to you? Besides academics, you want to think about funding. What does the funding look like at that institution? What does the life outside of academics look like at that institution? And then you definitely want to think about career plans and goals. I know that you are just starting to think about applying to graduate school, but a big part of graduate school is what comes after. So you want to think about 5, 10 years down the line, what you want to do. What is your career plans and what are your goals? And what can you do in graduate school to help you attain that? So thinking about skills and interests, institutional offerings, career plans, and goals will help you decide on a good fit graduate program for you. So when thinking about fit, there are important things to consider besides academics or in addition to academics. So academics and research is very important at these institutions, so you definitely want to look into that. But faculty mentoring is also very important. As a graduate student, you will be interacting quite frequently with faculty. So what type of faculty mentorship do they offer at that institution? Housing. Does that graduate institution offer you the opportunity to stay near campus or on campus? Do they offer family housing if you're a student with children or with dependents? Do they offer a single graduate student housing? What does that housing situation look like? And again, if you are a student with a family who you're either taking care of children or you have dependents, for instance, taking care of your parents, taking care of your grandparents, do they offer you resources for schooling, for care of your children or of your dependents? You want to think about health and wellness. Maybe you are big on attending or going to the gym. Does that university have a gym for you? Maybe you are big on doing mountaineering on the weekends. Do you have the opportunity to do that while you are at that university? You also want to think about arts and culture. Maybe you are big on going to concerts and that is your thing. So your goal is to go to many different concerts while you're in graduate school. Do you have the opportunity to do that while you are at that graduate institution? And of course, you want to think about professional networking. A big part of grad school is networking. So you want to see if you can develop your network further in graduate school. Do they offer you professional and career development? Do they have a career center dedicated specifically for graduate students and their advancement in their careers? You want to think about conferences and annual meetings. Does that institution offer you funding to attend conferences and annual meetings? Are you able to do that while you are at that institution? And of course, you want to think about graduate student organizations and support. What does that look like at that institution? What kind of affinity groups do they have? If they don't have an affinity group for you or that you're looking for, do they have the opportunity for you to create your own org at that institution? And of course, you want to think about diversity and inclusion initiatives on that campus. So I talked a little about academics and research, and I want to get you to understand academic fit further by asking yourselves a couple of questions. When it comes to academic fit, you definitely want to think about what your objectives are for entering graduate school. What kind of research is being conducted in that graduate program of interest? What is your research agenda, and who are the faculty that you can work on it with? How are you paired with faculty in that graduate program of interest? What are your preferred mentoring and communication styles? Perhaps you are more hands-on and you'd like to meet with your mentor on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, checking in, or you are perhaps more hands-off and you prefer not meeting as frequently with your mentor, but checking in over email, checking in over a coffee chat. Uh, what type of training am I looking for and what skills do I need to develop? How much independent versus teamwork do I want to do? And where do the alumni of this program go after completing the program? And what do they do? So those are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself when you are considering academic fit with a graduate program. But I mentioned earlier that graduate school is very much big on networking. So I want you to consider who's in your network. This is you. You're the future graduate student. I am a recruiter for UCLA graduate programs. I am now a part of your network. So if you are interested in learning more about UCLA graduate programs, you're more than welcome to connect with us or with me to learn a little bit more about what UCLA has to offer. Let's say, for example, you as a future graduate student reaches out to me, the recruiter, and you are interested in our psychology program. So as a recruiter, I can connect you with a student affairs officer. So a student affairs officer is a graduate program advisor for a specific grad program who is the kind of middle person between faculty, grad students, postdoc, alumni, and others. They are the person that you want to talk to if you have any questions about their graduate program, about their funding, about their curriculum. They are the person that I will put you in contact with. So that student affairs officer can in turn connect you with current graduate students in that program as well as faculty. It's great to connect with faculty to learn a little bit more about the academic side and what research is being conducted there or what professional opportunities are available there. But I definitely encourage you as a future incoming grad student to think about connecting further with graduate students in that specific graduate program because they are already going through that experience. So you can learn a lot through their experience and ask them a little bit more questions about grad student life or what's it like or what are you looking forward to after you finish your graduate program. So connecting with them further. But of course, student affairs officers can also connect you with postdoc, alumni, and others in that graduate department. But you may be asking yourself, okay, this is all good and well, but networking can be a little scary. How do I connect further with somebody? Well, I would encourage you all to think about informational interviewing. Informational interviewing is reaching out to somebody to ask for more information. So let's go back to the example that we were using earlier. Let's say, for example, you connect with me and I connect you with the student affairs officer in our UCLA psychology department because you'd like to learn more about their grad program. They agreed to do a quick 15-minute Zoom informational meeting with you. So what you should be doing before meeting with this person, with that grad student affairs officer, is researching and preparing questions. As a prospective graduate student, we do encourage you to ask some of the following questions. Summer research opportunities. What kind of opportunities are available in their grad department? Admissions processes or requirements. Connecting with faculty that align with your research interests. Connecting with grad students and postdoctoral students. Departmental support for graduate students in the program, both academic and financial. So once you have research and prepared questions, you're going to conduct the informational interview, and then afterwards, you should be following up and managing the relationship. So this is a general rule of thumb, not only for informational interviewing, but for networking in general. Um, After connecting with somebody, make sure you follow up and you manage the relationship. If you do an informational interview with, again, let's go back to the example of the psychology student affairs officer, you want to follow up with them and tell them, thank you so much for meeting with me. It was great talking to you. I'd love to connect further in the future. I will keep you posted about my application to your graduate program. So make sure you are following up and managing that relationship. So this is one form of informational interviewing. We do also have another specific type of informational interviewing, and that is academic informational interviews. Let's say, for example, again, going back to that psychology example, you meet with that student affairs officer and they connect you with a psychology faculty. Now is the time that you want to ask them more research and academic based questions. So here are a couple of questions that you can ask faculty when doing an academic informational interview. What influenced or motivated your area of research? You want to get to know them. So besides being faculty and academics, they are also human. So you can connect with them further by learning a little bit more about who they are and what got them into academia. And then, of course, you want to talk a little bit more about what research are they currently conducting at the moment, what their research results reveal, if any, what challenges or trends are they seeing, what is the direction of their research, and what else should I know? So again, there is that informational interview, and this is the academic informational interviews. But this is one way you can approach networking. So we've talked about exploring your graduate school options and doing a little bit of the me search and expanding your network to learn a little bit more about what is a good graduate program fit for you. Now is the time that we want to talk about the actual graduate application process. So let's talk about the application checklist. And I do want to preface this by saying that this application checklist is specific to the UCLA graduate programs. But we always encourage students to reach out to their graduate program of interest, even if that's at another institution, so that they can make sure that they are following all admissions requirements. But again, this is specific to UCLA. So usually for a grad application, what is required is an online application and application fee. Always check to see if you qualify for a fee waiver, a statement of purpose and a personal statement, a resume and or CV, letters of recommendation, typically 3, but that really depends on the graduate program, official test scores such as the GRE, official TOEFL or IELTS score if you are an international student and are not exempt from the English language requirement, official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions you have attended, supplemental departmental materials, for example, a writing sample, and again, this application checklist is specific to UCLA, so we encourage you to reach out to your graduate programs of interest at whichever institution to make sure you are following their admissions requirements. But this is typically what a grad application requires. I talked a little about online application and it requiring an application fee. There are many ways that you can go about potentially getting a graduate application fee waiver. These are the ways that you can qualify for one at UCLA or for UCLA graduate programs. So the Division of Graduate Education waives the graduate application fee for applicants who meet the following criteria. So one, we have our program participation fee waivers. So we do have specific pathway program participants that are eligible for a fee waiver. You are welcome to check this website for more information to see which pathway programs are available for this fee waiver. We also have a need-based fee waiver, and those are available to U.S. citizens and permanent residents who demonstrate financial need. Then we have a benefits-based fee waivers, where applicants must submit a benefit stub from their local municipality showing proof of receiving specified benefits within the last 90 days, for example, CalFresh or Medi-Cal. And then, of course, we do have our events-based fee waivers. So the Division of Graduate Education will award application fee waivers to PhD program applicants for 2020 for the upcoming academic cycle that we engage with at in-person and designated recruitment conferences and events. For more information, I do encourage you all to check our website, grad.ucla.edu, for more info on our graduate application fee waiver. So the graduate application review process. As I talked about earlier, our office, Recruitment, Outreach, and Admissions, does not review applications. On the contrary, we here at UCLA give our graduate departments a little bit more power in choosing the students for their graduate programs. So what graduate programs typically do here at UCLA is they put together an admissions committee. So at UCLA, applications for admissions are primarily reviewed by the faculty in the departments and schools. So I talked earlier about a student affairs officer, but the graduate student affairs officer has programmatic responsibility for outreach, recruitment, and retention. This staff member prepares applications for review by the admissions committee, advises current and prospective graduate students, and is available to answer questions about programs or the application process. And again, the Division of Graduate Education offers admissions Offers of admissions are made only at the recommendation of the department and are subject to review by the graduate dean. Departments do not have the authority to offer admissions to candidates. Applicants are formally notified of admission decisions by the graduate dean. So this is how the graduate application review process works at UCLA. Again, this may vary depending on the institution that you're interested in. So I highly recommend to, once again, check in with those graduate programs to make sure that you are understanding of their review process. A common question that we get is, what GPA do I need? Well, at UCLA, our only admissions requirement, UCLA-wide, is a GPA requirement. So the most common GPA required for grad school is a 3.0, though exact GPA requirements can vary depending on the program. So that means that if you do not, some of these graduate programs are a little bit more competitive, and they may have a higher GPA. Again, we recommend checking with that graduate program of interest to check their GPA requirements, but fear not, applicants with GPAs below 3.0 can be recommended for admission through Dean's Special Action. So you can learn more about what Dean's Special Action entails by scanning this QR code. But I say that the GPA is one of the only UCLA-wide requirements, because all other application or admissions requirements are set by the graduate program itself. But most of these graduate programs do put together a holistic admissions review. What that typically means is a consideration of broad range of candidate qualities, including non-cognitive or personal attributes. In other words, holistic admissions is the complete review of your application. So the Division of Graduate Education is currently working to shift all departments towards holistic admissions. Traditional metrics are still important, but we want to consider them in the context of the whole student and their ability to achieve. The idea is to look at the whole file, create a process that looks at all the pieces. The key element in holistic admissions that things like GPAs and standardized test scores are looked at in context. What's possible for a student and what are the institutional constraints? Because it encourages us to be comprehensive and systematic and contextualize the student achievement. Holistic admissions is a way to think about equity. And it's a practice that can encourage inclusion. So in terms of your applications, please take care to give us all the info that you can. So we want to make sure that when we are reviewing your application, we are reviewing it holistically, because we want to make sure that you would be a great or excellent fit for that graduate program. Now, the next application requirement for most grad apps is admissions essays. And I'd like to start off with the first essay, Statement of Purpose, and talk a little bit more about what you should be writing in that statement of purpose. So you want to talk a little bit more about why you are motivated to apply for that graduate program. What have you done to prepare you for that graduate program? And what are your professional goals that are related to the pursuit of that degree? As opposed to the personal statement, where we want you to talk a little bit more about your educational, cultural, economic, and or social experiences that have shaped your academic journeys. What accomplishments, challenges, or barriers have you met in the pursuit of your higher education? So the statement of purpose and personal statement, you typically want to double check the prompts that are given to you on the graduate application. So make sure you are following their word length, their formatting requirements, and the questions that they are asking. But this is typically what you should be writing or what questions you should be answering within those admissions essays. A couple of admissions writing tips for you all. Avoid duplicating information from one essay to another. Highlight what makes you unique and what distinct perspective you can bring to your graduate program and your future profession. All of your essays should tell a coherent story, because the plot line is everything that has led you to this graduate program, and they should make sense in any order that they are read. Another component of the graduate application process or application is the resume or CV. And typically in the resume or CV, you should be including positions of employment and relevant details, volunteer work and community service since high school. I know that maybe not something that you're thinking about high school. However, many of the works that you may have been doing in high school may be relevant to the graduate degree that you are pursuing. So you're welcome to add that to your resume and or CV. You want to highlight any relevant research and professional experience. You want to use impactful, active language. Resumes are recommended for professional programs, whereas CVs are typically recommended for academic and doctoral programs. Another part of the graduate application are admissions examinations. So graduate admissions exams may include but are not limited to the following. Some master's and PhD programs may require you to submit scores for the graduate record exam or the GRE. If you're interested in medical school or medicine, you will likely have to take the medical college admissions test or the MCAT. If you're interested in law or receiving a GED, you may need to take the law school admissions test or the LSAT, dentistry, the dental admissions tests, pharmacy, the pharmacy college admissions tests, business school, graduate management admissions tests. As I've said previously, and as I will keep encouraging you all to do, please double check with your graduate program of interest to make sure that you are following their admissions requirements, including admissions examinations. For those of you who need to take an admissions examination before applying to a graduate program, I do want to provide some tips and tricks for preparing and taking those admissions examinations. Specifically for the graduate records examination or the GRE, don't push the deadline. Make sure that you are registering early so that you can secure a spot. You want to take that GRE at least 1 month in advance of the application deadline, preferably the summer before, because ETS, which is the testing service, does require time to score and transmit to the institutions that you have requested. Before considering paying for any test prep, there are free resources available to you that ETS actually provides. So if you go into a web browser, into a search engine, and you input GRE Power Prep 2, it should lead you to the ETS website where you can find 2 previous mock examinations of the GRE. So that can help you prepare for this admissions examination. Another part of the application process is submitting letters of recommendation. 3 letters are typically required, but again, it does depend on the graduate program that you are applying to. So some graduate programs may only require 2, may only require 1, or may require from specific people, so specific faculty or specific employers. Please double check with those graduate programs of interest. But typically, when receiving letters of recommendation, what you want to do is first identify recommenders who can speak to your intellect, aptitude for research, persistence, and readiness for graduate school. After you have identified those recommenders, you want to ask them for a strong letter of recommendation, but you want to ask them with enough time so that they can write you a strong letter of recommendation. If they say yes, you want to be strategic and you want to provide them with talking points that they can emphasize about you in that letter of recommendation. So you want to help them help you by providing them with your statement of purpose, even if it's just a draft, transcripts, relevant papers, resume, etc. Earlier, I talked about a general rule of thumb of managing and following up with those relationships. So after the application process, you want to follow up with your recommender. If you're accepted into that graduate program, let them know and thank them again for writing you a letter of recommendation. Now here is a graduate admissions timeline. And again, I'm going to emphasize that this graduate admissions timeline is specific to UCLA. So I encourage you to reach out to your graduate program of interest, if it's not at UCLA, to make sure that you are following their deadlines and their timeline. Typically at UCLA, our online applications open in September. From November to May, we have various department deadlines. So the graduate program that you are interested in may have a different deadline from another graduate program that you're interested in. So make sure that you are checking those deadlines on our website, grad.ucla.edu, to make sure that you are on top of it. But a date that I do want to talk about that is not only specific to UCLA, but to many other graduate institutions is this April 15th deadline. And this is a generally agreed upon deadline for student response and statement of intent to register deadline for financial support offers. In other words, if you were accepted into a graduate institution and you were provided a funding offer, then you should respond by April 15th if you decide to go to that program so that you are guaranteed that financial support offer. Because after this deadline, that is no longer guaranteed. So most graduate programs will send you admissions notifications before this April 15th deadline so that you can make an informed decision and decide on which is the right graduate program fit for you. All right, so then how can I maximize my time before applying to grad school? Well, you want to grow your academic and professional network. So you want to attend conferences related to your research interests, your research programs. You want to go to graduate schools fairs and learn a little bit more about the graduate programs that are offered. You want to start connecting with people in your field, faculty in your field, other students in your field to grow and expand your network. So make sure you also lean into informational interviewing or academic informational interviewing. And of course, you want to strengthen and or develop relationships with relevant faculty. You want to think about professors that can provide strong letters of recommendation. So now's the time, if you haven't done that, to go to office hours, to get to know your faculty, to get to know the research that they're doing, and to be more involved. And last but certainly not least, you want to think about fit and which programs are a good match for you, and you want to consider both academic and non-academic factors. So we've talked about exploring your graduate school options as well as applying to that graduate program. Now I want to help you create an action plan. So you want to create a timeline as you think about the application process, and there's many ways that you can approach this. You can approach this by using pencil and paper, a wall calendar or organizer or passion planner, or if you are a little bit more tech savvy and would like to get notifications, using a mobile or browser app such as Todoist, Smartsheet, Trello, Gtasks to help you create a timeline. So you're going to create a to-do list, you want to include important deadlines, and you want to set reminders so that you stay on track of your applications. So I'm going to give you an example of creating your action plan, and this is through backwards planning. So let's say, for example, your application due date or your hard deadline is December 1st, but you do not want to wait last minute to submit your application because anything can go wrong. Perhaps the application system crashes on the day that you decide to submit your application because there are a lot of people also submitting their application. So in order for you to avoid any of that technical issue or anything else that might arise, you decide that your internal due date or your soft deadline is 2 weeks before, Friday, November 20th. However, you know that you have to submit letters of recommendation, so you have to give your recommenders enough time to write you strong letters of recommendation. So you should be asking your recommenders for a strong letter of recommendation no later than October 9th. But you know that in order to receive a strong letter of recommendation, you want to be able to provide them with more information or talking points about you. So you provide them with, or you have that first draft of your statement of purpose ready by early September. But you also know that your program requires the GRE examination. So you have to take it sometime in September and October, and you decide to study for that GRE 3 to 6 months before the exam. So you start studying from June to September. This is an example of an action plan or backwards planning from the deadline of your graduate application. Of course, everybody goes at their own pace, so I recommend for you to create an action plan that follows your pace. So a couple of final tips for you all. Now is the time to be a perfectionist. You want to ensure name accuracy on all your documents for school, faculty recommenders. If you are using templates for these graduate applications, make sure that you are inputting the correct school, the correct faculty, the correct recommenders, the correct graduate programs that you are applying to. You want to ensure your statement of purpose, personal statement, answer each of the program's prompt, word length, and formatting requirements. You want to ensure you are including the correct supplemental materials. And this one is very, very big. You want to proofread, proofread, proofread. There's no such thing as too many drafts. So rely on your network, rely on your family, on your friends, on your or people within your major, your acquaintances, to help you read your application because they might catch a mistake that you did not catch on the 25th read of your application. So rely on your network so that you are submitting a grad application that you are fully confident in. Amazing. If you do have any questions, I do highly encourage you all to reach out to us. So again, my name is Erica Salazar. I'm the Manager of Recruitment, Outreach, and Inclusion, and we do have an office here at UCLA. We are located in Murphy Hall, Suite 1247, but we also have an email that you can reach out to us if you do have any questions. That is askgrad@grad.ucla.edu. If you would prefer to see us in person, again, we are in Murphy Hall, Suite 1247, and we are open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and we do accept walk-ins. Thank you so much, and we hope that you consider UCLA for your graduate education.